Okay, and anyway, I saw it after attending the United States Social Forum, which Inside Arts was. I was so honored and privileged to travel there to Detroit in 2010 to be there, and that was kind of where I got really activated about the importance of economic justice and really like speaking out about it. And so the story of Stuff made it really, really approachable. It really broke. I mean, for anyone. I've shown this to my students as well. I teach students of different development capacities, of different ages, and they get it. And that's what it's about. It's about this kind of knowledge, this kind of work being accessible, because it's nice that some of us are up here with degrees, but it's not just about us with degrees. It's about those of us that are still, participants in the system, that are gradually being exploited by the system, to really kind of say, oh wait, this is messed up. Now what? So, that was why I really, when I saw the story of Stuff and it was just so easy, I was like, yes, everyone. Or at least, how do I put this into a song so people can get it and at least be, so that's that. Anybody?
I actually was looking at some of like the drawings and stuff before I watched the movie. I was like, oh wow, like little kids draw this. Like, this is really cool. And then you like watch the movie and I sort of like got it, and like it just goes to show that like the different things along the wall, that's what they took out of it. Like that's what they remembered about it. So it's like it was simple enough to where like a kid could understand it, but then it was also like witty and it was also like funny, but it was also informative to adults as well. So I think that's good, and I think that more like films and stuff like that should be shown in schools and should be shown to kids as young as can watch, I guess, because it's very simple. Anybody can grasp the concept. And it's very basic and like ground level, but not a lot of people know because they're not really telling you about the behind the scenes things that happen to start consuming.
Right, and to piggyback off of that, I think not only was it accessible in terms of being able to comprehend what was happening in the film, but also it was accessible to where kids and students were able to replicate it, right? So now, not only are you able to go and draw pictures that look identical to the film, you're able to maybe go ahead and relay the message once you're done viewing.
I just wanted to kind of to go with that. I also found that this work puts you in the perspective of as a global citizen, by the fact that it showed you, okay, so you got that $4.99 radio, okay, we've all been to Family Dollar, where you can get your really cheap electronics, but the fact that the film breaks down that it takes, this electronics, it travels to 4 different countries, and now you have to think, oh wait, in South Africa, those kids look like me. Oh, and they're mining. Okay, and then in Mexico, in the Maquiladora, oh wait, those kids look like me. Okay, and with Iraq, we've been in war since I was in junior high. Okay, so people that I was in junior high with have died in war. And so it's like, when you see that, okay, you're going to Iraq to mine the oil, that puts it all into perspective. So we don't just think of ourselves as Chicagoans, as like Pilsenites or whatever. We're able to think of ourselves as, having a global impact just from our spending habits, from our habits of consumption. And that's a huge thing too. To start thinking bigger than a block is huge. So.
I have kind of a funny entry point with this that I was trying to think of how to talk about. I remember when this film was first being conceived, and I was sitting in a donor's home who was trying to get me to help her defend the content that was in the film, because a number of very powerful foundations were trying to get it to be more pro-American, but there was no way to have the content of the film be anything but what it was, which talks about the greatest consumption happening. And I'll just name her, it was Maggie Lear, who ended up just saying, fuck the Rockefeller Foundation and the Ford Foundation, I'll just put my own money in, and we won't, whatever, we won't have that money. I mean, that's really how this got, and I think it comes back to another thing of why the information doesn't get to people because there were these powerful entities of these powerful, supposedly progressive foundations who were actually trying to block that content from being in there, particularly the first part, particularly exactly what you were talking about, particularly the part that we're global citizens and that we're screwing over, you know, the third world first. They didn't want that to be in there. They wanted somehow to talk about being less materialistic without talking about the fact that we're killing people with our materialism. So I just think that I wanted to throw that in because there's sort of a background of why it's funded by the Tides Foundation instead of by those big foundations. And that's really why.
Which is an entry. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. Entry point. No? No? Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you to Insight for actually putting this together. I didn't know this was a daily event. So, Insight Arts is some folks who've been around for a while, and who've been holding it down. I thought the video was really dope in terms of just like the visuals and making the explanation simple. My only issue with it was that, you know, I think when you're kind of defining crisis, you know, like of course like the crisis of capital, you always got to keep in context that, and it seemed like she was trying to wrestle with it at first, you know, like she wanted the United States to be you know, of the people, for the people, but other, I guess her friends wanted it to be a big tank, you know? And so, the idea being is that, you know, you can't even get to the point where you're telling that, you know, that young indigenous person or a young African or whoever, you know, get down in their mind and get me those medals without first violence, right? Without first the military stepping in either via their own state or at the behest of the West. And so I think that was just kind of like the context that was overall missing, right? Because, you know, they started talking about Iraq. Well, how do we get out oil in Iraq? You know, beforehand, oil in Iraq was nationalized and went to the people and was controlled by the people. Now it's being privatized and has some semblance of sharing with people, but not necessarily. So I think anytime you talk about capital, anytime you talk about the making of capital, you always got to start with violence first. You know, you got to start with, right, Native Americans getting killed in genocide, right? Then you got to start, and then you got to come with Africans forced in the bottom of a boat, and then violently made to work, you know. And then even the context of then other immigrants. Why did they come here? Because of the violence in their other countries. Because the United States always wants to feed itself, constantly wants to feed itself. So, but yeah, but overall, I mean, the thing it was pretty neat. I mean, it kept me entertained.
That's funny that you said that because I felt like they glossed over the military for sure. Like in the beginning, I even think like in terms of like, I'm sure that part of it is because it was in 2010, but I think that some of the statistics even like she said it's over 50%, but I think it's like it's huge. Isn't it like I don't know. I just feel like she didn't want to touch on it too much, and I felt the same way. So I'm glad you said that.
There are two statistics, right? There's the statistic of literally what they call in the budget military expenditures, which is about 50%, but they're lying, right? So it's actually closer to almost 70% because there's the soft military expenditures that they put in another way so that you know, like people paying taxes don't realize that 70% of your dollar goes to kill other people's children. Like, you know, and none of it comes to take care of your own children. It goes, like, they don't want you to know that, so they gloss over it. They're even embarrassed that it's 70%. Yeah.
So, what are some ways of addressing this crisis? I'd like each of you to kind of change that. I think that you can start small. Like it's always best to like start with yourself, and then you may inspire other people through your own actions to sort of take action. Like you can, you know, maybe boycott certain stores or products that you know are unethical to their workers, or you can support local to sort of support like businesses and workers who are in like Chicago or wherever you may be, instead of always having to like get things exported from other countries and other places. Like start here so that dollar can start circulating in your own communities. Also, you can definitely recycle. There's like a million different uses for one thing, and people have it so programmed in their mind that, oh, well, the packaging says that it's this, so I can't use it for this. I have to go buy this. And, you know, just over-consuming. Our lives really don't have to be that complicated. Just, you know, like they make cell phones and TVs and computers, like she said, to like break every 2 years. So every 2 years you need to get an upgrade, and you don't need an upgrade. You just want to upgrade, and you keep telling yourself, oh my God, the new iPhone 17 came out. Like I have to get it. Like you don't have to get it. Like you have the iPhone 16. Like there's nothing wrong with that. So you just always have to have like the next bigger and better things. To, like compete with your neighbors. It's completely unnecessary. It's just really unnecessary. So. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and to again piggyback off of you, I think part of it is, to quote Angela Davis, learning to live in that contradiction, because I think even for myself, there are times when you try to make a conscious decision to not shop here, or to not shop here, or to not do this, not consume this, but then you look over here at another place where you are spending your money, and you're like, shit, they got me again.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is learning to build the consciousness to say, okay, there are going to be slip-ups, but once I learn about it, that's when I can continue to move forward, but be okay with that contradiction, because it's going to be a contradiction at times.
Well, to piggyback off of that, we have the ability to put pressure on organizations and really, we need to make them ashamed of themselves. You know what I mean? Like, that's really what it is. I was at Loyola a few weeks ago, and they've been having, you know, issues with, like, their enrollment, their minority enrollment is kind of pitiful. And the organization that was putting on the show was, like, it was a black student organization. I was like, look, I'm sure on your majority campus you have some little scandal going on. You need to reach out to local, you know, people. You need to reach out to media. You need to make your school ashamed of the fact that they have a 2% black population for a freshman class. Okay, even for a private university. I mean, I won't call it, whatever. The point is, you can put the pressure on organizations enough so that they are ashamed of themselves. Susan G. Komen, do I need to talk about that? You know, like, all of these different organizations, the sooner we, you know, get some media attention, get mad, you know, blast one of my songs outside of the store and protest something, you know, because when we do start holding them accountable, we start seeing them show up. Whether it's exposing the violence of the state, which, you know, is going to happen, definitely, when we get to that topic. But, you know, once you expose the nature of the state, it's hard for people to forget. It's hard for anyone to forget. Once you've been activated, it gets harder for you to go back and forget what you just learned, right? Right? So, don't forget, you know, live within the contradiction, but tell a few of your friends, get them ticked off too. It's the same thing as Yelp. You go on Yelp and you have a bad experience, all these people go back and read about it, and then they decide not to shop there, or they decide whatever. So your influence, we all have influence in some way, shape, or form, is one of the ways that you can really get others. And once we hold people accountable, they have to show something for themselves.